I never thought a simple gate would nearly cost me everything I'd spent 70 years building. My name is Robert Harlan, but folks around here just call me Bob. I'm 68, born and raised on the same 1,000 acres my grandfather homesteaded back when this part of Colorado was still wild. The dirt road that cuts through the heart of the ranch has always been ours, private, paid for, and listed plain as day on every deed since 1952. It's the same road my father taught me to drive on when I was 12, the same stretch where my wife Laura and I had our first kiss under a harvest moon in 1978. That road carried my mother's casket to the little cemetery on the hill in 1994, and it carried my daughter home from the hospital with Sophie in her arms 16 years ago. It's more than dirt and gravel. It's the spine of every memory I own. So when I bolted that automatic gate across it one crisp October morning in 2023, I felt a surge of pride, the kind that settles deep in a man's chest when he knows he's protecting what's his. I figured I was just keeping the big rigs from tearing up the pasture and spooking the horses. I never imagined I'd be staring down a sheriff's cruiser, an HOA president in 4-inch heels, and a $500 ticket for blocking a road I supposedly didn't own. The trouble started at 6:30 sharp. I was tightening the last hinge, the cold metal biting into my palms, when the convoy rolled in, dust kicking up like a summer storm. First came Deputy Tom Riley's cruiser, Tom, who used to mow my lawn for pocket money when he was 15, who cried in my kitchen the day his daddy died. Then a black Mercedes I recognized from the Pine Ridge Estates gatehouse, followed by 2 white SUVs with HOA decals. Out stepped Margaret Whitmore, president of the Homeowners Association for the past 8 years. She was 65, always dressed like she was heading to a country club brunch, even at dawn. Behind her trailed 3 board members clutching clipboards and manila folders thick enough to stop a bullet. The morning mist still clung to the cottonwoods, and the horses lifted their heads, ears pricked, sensing the wrongness before I did. "Morning, Bob," Margaret called, voice carrying that polished tone people use when they think the argument is already over. "I'm afraid we have a serious problem. You're obstructing County Road 14C. I laughed, couldn't help it. The sound came out brittle, like dry leaves under boot. "Margaret, this is the same road my grandfather graveled with his own tractor in 1954. It's on every survey from here to Denver. My blood's in that dirt." She produced a document with a flourish, the paper crisp against the morning chill. Emergency Designation, 2019. Public right-of-way for emergency services and county maintenance. The county seal gleamed under the rising sun. Deputy Riley shifted his weight, boots scuffing the gravel, his face flushed with the same embarrassment I'd seen when he was 12 and broke my fence with his bicycle. "Bob, the GPS backs it up," he said, tapping his dashboard tablet. "I've got to cite you. $500, 24 hours to remove the gate, or it's arrest." The words landed like a slap. $500 was 2 weeks of groceries, a vet bill, half a mortgage payment. I stared at the road sign they'd planted while I was bolting the gate. County Road 14C, letters crisp, metal gleaming, bolts bright silver. No rust, no fade, no evidence it had ever seen a Colorado winter. My stomach nodded. "Tom," I said quietly, my voice cracking like old leather. "You've patrolled this loop since you got your badge. When did the county put that up?" He hesitated, pen hovering, the weight of 20 years of neighborly trust pressing down on him. "Can't say I recall it, Bob. But the system says." Margaret cut in, already on her phone, recording. "Cooperation keeps communities strong." Her smile was a blade. By supper her video was viral. "Responsible homeowner removes illegal obstruction." 75,000 views before the meatloaf came out of the oven. Comments poured in like floodwater. Entitled rancher. Typical boomer. Should have known better. Each one felt like a stone thrown at the house I'd built with my own hands. The fallout was immediate and brutal. 3 horseboarding clients called by Wednesday to cancel. "Nothing personal, Bob, but we can't risk the drama," one said, her voice thin with apology. The feed store, where I'd bought oats every Saturday for 15 years, where old Mr. Jenkins used to slip Sophie a peppermint, suddenly ran out of my usual sweet mix and offered me the expensive organic stuff instead. Our insurance agent scheduled a policy review. The bank sent a letter about ongoing disputes affecting collateral valuation. I stood in the kitchen reading it aloud, my voice shaking, while Laura's eyes filled with tears she refused to let fall. Sophie came home from school that afternoon with red-rimmed eyes. "They're calling you Roadblock Grandpa online," she whispered. "Kids I've known since kindergarten." They shared Margaret's video with laughing emojis. She dropped her backpack with a thud that echoed like a gunshot in the quiet house. Laura pulled her close, but Sophie's shoulders shook with sobs that tore at my heart worse than any fine. That night Laura found me in the barn, staring at the gate pieces stacked like firewood. The air smelled of sawdust and defeat. "We can't fight this, Bob," she whispered, her hand trembling on my arm. "Not when the whole internet's against us. We have Sophie to think about. The ranch. Our life." Her voice broke on the last word, and for the first time in 45 years of marriage, I saw fear in her eyes. Fear of losing everything we bled for. I wanted to promise her it would be okay, but the words stuck in my throat. Instead I held her while she cried, the way she'd held me the night my father died. The barn rafters creaked overhead, and the horses nickered softly, as if they understood the weight of the moment. But our granddaughter Sophie, 16, honor student, sharper than a new spur, had been digging through my father's old lockbox for a school project on family history. She came running out of the house the next morning, barefoot in the frost, waving a yellowed folder. Grandpa, look. 1985 Deed Amendment. Subsurface mineral rights retained in perpetuity by grantor and heirs. And there's a geological survey attached. The survey was technical, pages of graphs and core samples, but the conclusion was plain. Significant limestone deposits with rare earth potential directly beneath our road. Estimated value, adjusted for inflation, $3 million. Optimal extraction entry point? The exact spot where Margaret's shiny new sign now stood. Sophie's eyes were wide with wonder and fury. They're not after the road, Grandpa. They're after what's under it. I didn't sleep that night. The house was quiet except for the tick of the grandfather clock and the occasional creak of old beams settling. I sat at the kitchen table with the survey spread before me, tracing the lines with a finger that wouldn't stop trembling. My father's handwriting in the margin, steady, deliberate, reminded me of the day he'd pointed to that same spot and said, "Bob, this land will take care of you long after I'm gone." I'd thought he meant the cattle, the hay, the legacy. Now I understood he'd meant something buried deep, something worth stealing. At dawn I drove to the county annex with Sophie's printout and a thermos of coffee gone cold. The building smelled of floor wax and old paper, the kind of scent that clings to your clothes. Walt Grayson met me in the basement, retired road department supervisor, 79 years old, moving like a man who still knew every skeleton in every filing cabinet. His hands shook slightly as he pulled out a 1964 master plan, the paper brittle as autumn leaves. 14C doesn't show up in any plat book before March 15, 2019, he said, voice low, as if the walls might be listening. Created at 11:47 p.m. on a Saturday. Guess whose mother stopped attending commission meetings 3 months later? Eleanor Whitmore. Margaret's mother. 89, sharp as a tack, fixture at every county meeting for 20 years, asking pointed questions about budgets, development, mineral rights. Then she vanished into Sunset Pines memory care in late 2022. No death certificate, no guardianship filing, no power of attorney. Just gone. Walt's eyes were wet when he said her name. Eleanor was the only one who ever stood up to Lang. She knew where the bodies were buried, figuratively and maybe literally. We paid Sunset Pines a visit the next afternoon, posing as folks shopping for Laura's aunt. The lobby smelled of lemon polish and despair, the kind that seeps into your bones. A nurse rolling a medicine cart muttered, "Poor Mrs. Whitmore in 217 keeps asking about her mineral checks. Dementia's cruel." The words hit me like a branding iron. Cruel wasn't the half of it. Eleanor sat at a puzzle table in the activities room, frail but upright, eyes clear as creek ice. When I introduced myself, she gripped my hand with surprising strength, her fingers cold but steady. "They told everyone I'm losing my mind," she said, voice steady despite the tremor in her chin. "But I know exactly what my daughter's doing. She's been cashing my royalty checks, $45,000 every quarter, and telling the state I'm penniless so Medicaid pays the bills here. I haven't seen a dime in 18 months. I never signed any power of attorney. She brings papers, says they're for insurance, rushes me through signing. I thought I was helping with medical forms. I trusted her." Her voice cracked on the last word, and the sound of a mother's heart breaking is something you don't forget. The forgeries were clumsy once you knew to look. Eleanor's signature practiced, but wobbly, the notary stamp from a UPS store 2 counties away. Bank records, obtained with a court order Claire Monroe pushed through at lightning speed, showed the money funneled into LLCs that bought McMansions, leased drilling rigs, and paid Margaret a consulting fee that dwarfed her $45,000 HOA salary. Every LLC listed Margaret Whitmore as managing member. Claire's face was grim when she laid the statements on my kitchen table. "This isn't greed, Bob. This is predation." We moved fast. Claire filed an emergency injunction at 11:03 p.m. when Margaret rolled up to Sunset Pines with a moving van and Nevada plates. The night air was sharp with frost, and the facility's floodlights cast long shadows across the parking lot. Eleanor sat in a wheelchair clutching a stuffed bear Sophie had given her years ago at a county fair, her face pale with terror. "I just want to go home," she told Judge Ramirez over Zoom from his kitchen table, his hair still tousled from sleep. The judge didn't hesitate. Temporary protective custody, frozen accounts, welfare check at sunrise. Social workers arrived at 6 a.m. Sharp, their breath visible in the cold. Margaret's breakdown came in the lobby at 2:17 a.m. "You're ruining years of planning," she screamed at Claire, her voice echoing off the tile floors. "Without that access road, the whole network collapses. 3 states, dozens of families depending on those royalties." Her eyes were wild, mascara streaking down her cheeks like war paint. She didn't know the FBI was already listening through Claire's body wire, recording every word. Turns out County Commissioner Harold Lang had been running the playbook for a decade. Recruit greedy heirs, isolate the elders in memory care, forge the paperwork, fabricate public roads to justify heavy equipment access, sell the minerals 6 times over to shell companies, inflate surrounding land values, take out massive development loans, rinse, repeat. $47 million stolen across 23 counties. 67 grandmothers and grandfathers stripped of everything but the clothes on their backs. The scope of it made my knees buckle. I stood in the courthouse hallway clutching Laura's hand, both of us shaking with a rage that felt holy. The raid came at dawn, 6 counties, 3 states, simultaneous. Lang tried to slip out the courthouse back door during the emergency hearing and walked straight into federal cuffs. The agents moved like ghosts, vests marked FBI in yellow letters that glowed under the fluorescent lights. Margaret got 8 years and full restitution, $360,000 plus interest. Lang drew 15. Every fraudulent road designation was voided by lunch. The sign came down with a reciprocating saw and a cheer from the crowd that had gathered, neighbors, retirees, teenagers with phones held high. Someone started singing Sweet Caroline, and by the second verse the whole parking lot joined in. Eleanor moved home the next week. We converted the old bunkhouse into a granny flat with a ramp, a coffee pot that never went empty, and a window overlooking the pasture where the horses grazed. She sat on the porch the first morning, wrapped in one of Laura's quilts, watching the sun rise over the mountains. "I thought I'd never see this again," she whispered, tears slipping down cheeks that had known too many lonely nights. Sophie read her the comments on the new community Facebook page, thousands of people thanking her, calling her a hero. Eleanor laughed until she cried, the sound bright as bells. She insisted the mineral money do some good. The Eleanor Whitmore Trust now funds college scholarships for kids studying elder law and a 24-hour abuse hotline staffed by people who actually answer. Laura and I kept the road, turned it into a community lane with a $25 annual fee that covers gravel and nothing else. Transparency meetings every first Tuesday, minutes posted online before the coffee's poured. Attendance runs 95%. Folks bring casseroles, kids, and sometimes their dogs. The first meeting after the verdict, old Mr. Jenkins from the feed store stood up with tears in his eyes and apologized for doubting me. I shook his hand and told him we all make mistakes when fear's doing the talking. Sophie's college essay, How My Grandpa's Gate Saved 67 Grandmas, won a full ride to Denver University. She starts law school next fall. Eleanor will be in the front row, 91, and grinning like she's 25. She's already picked out her hat, a ridiculous purple thing with a feather that makes Sophie groan and Laura laugh until her sides hurt. Some nights I still walk the fence line where the gate used to hang. The air smells of pine and cooling earth, and the stars are so bright they feel close enough to touch. The sign now reads Harlan Whitmore Memorial Lane in simple block letters. Kids bike it to school. Old-timers stroll it for exercise, leaning on canes but lifting their faces to the sun. And every spring we plant a new lilac bush at the curve, Eleanor's favorite. The bushes are small now, but they'll outlive us all, their scent drifting across the pasture like a promise kept. I thought I was defending a strip of dirt. Turns out I was defending something bigger. The idea that a society too busy to notice its elders getting robbed will eventually rob itself. We noticed. We fought. We won. And we made sure the next gate isn't yours. What about you? Have you ever seen injustice dressed up as paperwork and politeness? Ever watched a neighbor turn predator because nobody was looking? Ever had to choose between keeping the peace and doing what's right, knowing it might cost you everything? Ever felt the weight of a community's judgment and still stood your ground? Drop your story in the comments. I read every one. Tell me where you draw the line and why. Tell me about the time you protected someone who couldn't protect themselves, or the time you wished you had. Because the next gate might be yours, and the next elder might be someone you love.